Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for this week. If you are joining us, you will see that we have a guest in today's podcast, and we'll get to them very shortly. But Magical Learning is a training facilitation company that's been running for over 25 years and has partnered with global thought leaders like John Mattone and Robin Sharma. We're now over 300 episodes, and we're very excited to have our guest, Dr. Jemma King, in for one of our first 10 inside that new 300. But Dr. Jemma, before we get into everything, how's your week going?
It's been a bit crazy. I've got I would say an ADHD type of week. I've got, 16 million tabs open in my head. So I've been developing a behavioural analysis course. I've been working with my new student on AI and EI stuff and doing lots of book launch stuff. So yeah, it's been crazy.
Well, thank you for fitting in the Magical Learning Podcast. We're very excited to talk to you about this topic.
Yeah, everybody sleeps, or hopefully, but everyone I speak to has an issue with sleep. It's epidemic.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Jemma King, author of Sleep First, which people can go buy now, the exciting new book. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself for our listeners and viewers, if you want to view on YouTube and Spotify?
Well, primarily I'm a stress researcher, and I am at the University of Queensland, and I do lots of research into all things human performance and emotional intelligence. And I also have got my own consulting firm, so I do a lot of keynotes and workshops for a huge range of people from defence, government, sport, business, education, law. And I've got 3 big kids. That's where I learnt most about sleep deprivation. And I spend my time on my farm here outside of Brisbane, and then I just travel heaps. So yeah, really, really busy life. And, so I didn't realize just how important sleep was until I started doing stress research. And then I realized, oh my God, this is a thing, because I don't need much sleep. But then once I looked at the data and changed my sleeping habits, my God, my life changed. So then this is why I, started doing sleep research.
Wow. Well, I mean, so we've got the book Sleep First, which I do want to touch on very shortly, but you've started somewhere really interesting. And so let's go there, because before we get into anything, I just want to know about your link between being a stress researcher and then going to write a book on sleep, because I'm sure there is, like, everyone in our mind will have a tangential connection, but do you want to tell us a little bit about that journey and maybe a little bit about how you came to write this book?
Yeah, I thought sleep was so annoying and boring. And it was like the last thing I wanted to do, because there's so many interesting things that can, capture your attention. And when I was looking at my data, I was seeing things that I could not ignore. And that was that every single person who I saw who had a mental health disruption also had sleep issues. And everybody I saw who had a sleep issue eventually succumbed to some form of mental health disorder. And I was like, this cannot be ignored. There's a huge correlation here between these two conditions. And so I started looking deeply into sleep. And then I found out that it is literally the most incredible legal human performance optimization protocol that you can get. So I basically say, there's a lot of people getting into longevity now. But spending lots of money on supplements and protocols. But I say, like, if I told you that there was a pill that could make you, funny, smart, fast, sexy, grow long legs, beautiful skin, long hair, just to be an amazing person, be better in bed, be better at thinking, be better at running, like, how much would you pay for that pill? And people would pay thousands. And I'm like, well, you've got it there every night for free. You don't need to do anything except do nothing. So the way I got to writing this book, I work with Olympic athletes, and one of them, Shayna Jack, one of the Olympic swimmers, and myself were invited on a panel at South by Southwest with the owner of 8 Sleep, which I'll talk about later. It's one of my favorite sleep pieces of tech. And I was talking about, all the things that I've learned about sleep and all the hacks and how important it is. And afterwards, a woman from Wiley, she ran up to me and said, "Oh my God, you've got to write a book." And I was like, "Oh, I have no time." Like, no. She's like, don't worry about it. What you can do, you can just put down dot points, and then we'll just get someone to help you to write it. And I was like, that sounds okay. She's like, it won't be that much time. That was absolute bullshit. It took me It took me months and months and months of day and night at my laptop researching and writing, which was good because, I did it myself. And so, yeah, that's how the book came about. And it really is a compilation of all the latest science, truth testing, the things that we hear on podcasts, and a lot of the stories from my people I've worked with, their experiences, but also it's a very personalized sleep formula. So it's basically a mechanism so you can identify what is stopping you from having quality sleep, and then, how you can make a personalized plan to change your sleep for your individual physiology.
Wow. Well, if people don't want to read the book now, I don't know what's wrong with them. You've covered about 90 things that are interesting in one statement there. So we've got to get into the questions here because there's too much I actually almost want to unpack from that. But what a great pitch there, Dr. Jemma. But let's maybe start here with Jeanette's question because I think it kind of tees up a good frame for maybe the rest of the conversation. Where she starts here, she usually asks two questions. So we'll start with the first one. What is good sleep?
Well, we have a proper definition of what good sleep is. It is, by all of the data, huge population level statistics, humans need, on average, 7.5 hours of actual sleep. So depending on how long it takes you to get to sleep will depend on how long you need to get to bed in order to get 7.5 hours sleep. So that includes around 5 to 6 90-minute sleep cycles. So this includes light sleep, going down through the stages of light sleep down into deep slow wave sleep, what we call non-REM sleep, and then up into REM sleep. And that's like a 90-minute cycle. And then, these are punctuated by micro arousals. So good night sleep is where you don't notice these micro arousals. And so your sleep architecture should look like, around 25% of the night should be deep slow wave sleep, 25% should be REM sleep, rapid eye movement, and that will oscillate depending on what you did that day. So if you have a more physically arduous day, or if you're sick, or if you've had alcohol, or your body needs repairing, you'll have slightly more deep, slow wave sleep. Or if you've had a very mentally arduous day, a lot of cognitive grind, a lot of emotional activation, you'll probably have a little bit more REM sleep. So that is a good night's sleep. If you are sleeping under 7 hours, you just don't live as long. So 6 under, you see huge drop-offs the curve in how long you will live and how well you will be. And that also is true for over 9 hours a night. So getting more sleep is actually not better. What it could be an indicator is that you're hiding a sort of a deeper metabolic issue, or you're depressed. And we see a lot of people will actually sleep a lot because there's something else going on. So unless you're a toddler or an elite athlete, you probably should not be sleeping over 9 hours. And so a good night's sleep is that you easily fall asleep within 10 to 15 minutes and you wake up. You should not need an alarm, and you feel refreshed when you wake up in the morning. And that's it. And if you do have some micro arousal, or you do have to get up and go to the bathroom throughout the night, or you do have a waking period we can talk about, it's okay. It's not catastrophic. So I suppose it's just normalizing what should sleep look like and what it doesn't look like when it's not normal is really important for people to know, because there's a lot of sleep anxiety out there.
Yeah, wow. Well, first of all, thank you for those very practical tips and very good framework for us to actually know if we're starting to get good sleep. So that's great. Some good parameters to start with there. But let's go to Jeanette's next question, because I think that this is going to be the next thing that people are probably thinking, which is, what do most people get wrong?
So much. So I think the biggest, I suppose, shock and most important piece of information that I learned when I started researching sleep is that, 8 hours is not 8 hours. It depends on when you have it. So people will say to me, look, I go to bed at midnight and I still get a good 7-8 hours sleep. That should be fine, right? If I just push it back. And it's not. It's actually a myth that 8 hours is good whenever you have it. The reason being is that The sleep in the 2 hours before midnight, the two sort of deep slow wave sleep periods, is incredibly important for so many things, for cellular regeneration, for repair, for rejuvenation, for cleaning your brain. People don't know that there is, that 2 hours or two sleep cycles before midnight is when you produce 70 to 80% of your human growth hormone. Now, people go, isn't that what makes, kids' legs grow longer? Do we need it as adults? And I'm like, 100% you need it. Human growth hormone is so important for so many metabolic processes, for so many, repair processes and growth. And if you miss that window of opportunity, you may get, on average, the same amount over 24 hours, but it's in short pulsatile secretions. And you're trying to produce growth hormone when your body's trying to do other things. So it's not as efficient and is not as replenishing. So this is why we think that people who work shift work die on average, around 15 years earlier than non-shift workers, because of this. So important to get that early deep sleep with that growth hormone. And another thing is that during that time is when you clean your brain. So what happens when you use energy throughout the day? Your body uses, glucose, and inside your brain, there's a process where ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, which is brain energy, it's a little explosion in your head, and that produces brain energy. And the metabolic byproducts, or what we call cellular exhaust that's left over from that process, builds up in your brain. And that stuff is called adenosine. And it's kind of Mother Nature's dimmer switch. It's the thing that makes you feel sleepy and we all know that feeling. So it's adenosine. It's an actual product in your brain. Now, the thing about adenosine, it gives you an impending sense of doom. And we know this because adenosine is also used as a heart medication for tachycardia. And when doctors give adenosine to their patients, the patients go, I'm dying. And the doctor has to say, no, don't worry. You're not going to die. It's just the medicine. It makes you feel awful. And so what happens is we build this up through the day. And, we need to, get rid of it, to get rid of this feeling that exhaustion gives us. And there's only one way to get rid of it, and that is deep, slow wave sleep. So there's lots of things that we do throughout the day and when you go to bed that stops you from getting into that deep, slow wave sleep at the start of the night. And so we don't often clear our brains. And what happens when we clean our brains is your cells move back and they kind of squish back. So just imagine if you had like an alleyway with cars going down it and you were trying to like gurney or clean that alleyway. You can't. So the cars, if they're parked on the side, you can clean the alleyway. And that happens in your brain. Now, what happens if that doesn't happen? We wake up in the morning, and humans really love to post-rationalize and wake up and they feel like crap. And they go, God, it must be, I hate my life, my wife, my dog, my job, I want to get divorced. I want to move house. I feel terrible because it must be everything around me. But actually, you could be just walking around with a very dirty brain and you don't know it because you didn't clean your brain, because you didn't get into deep, slow wave sleep. And people don't know this. So this is why I'm like, if you ever feel unhinged, if you ever feel out of sorts or overwhelmed, or you want to change your life, first, either get a wearable, check if you're getting deep slow wave sleep, or just have 3 weeks of really hardy, getting into bed and asleep by 10 o'clock, and see if you just need to clean your brain out. And invariably we see a lot of people just see their lives in a completely different light. So that's one of the biggest things I've learned. Not all sleep is equal. When you sleep's really important, and get into bed. And if you have important things to do because it's keeping you up at work or, whatever, you're better off going to bed early, cleaning your brain, and then doing work at 3 or 4 in the morning when your brain's clean and you're clear and you're in a much better state. You've got, your energy gets replenished. And yeah, that's my massive takeaway from sleep research.
Wow. Well, I've got to commend you there, Dr. Gemma, not only on giving us some great stuff to hang on to, and I've got to just take a little detour down the shift work path there because it does remind me of my shift work days. But uh, I think that you've done a great job as a science communicator there because you've really communicated a lot of complicated things, and then you gave us a nice little set of dot points at the end to just sort of highlight it. So great work there because I know science communication is actually one of the harder elements of doing, communicating this stuff. So great work.
Yeah, thank you. I do. I talk a lot about translating complex, science into digestible, implementable facts.
Yeah, no, because I mean, you can hear words like adenosine, and you'd be like, I didn't do biology or chemistry, and this is freaking me out. But it's great that you're giving us just the cliff notes of what's important to know. So that's very helpful. I was gonna say, when you're talking about shift work, geez, it reminded me of working shifts. I used to work at a grocery store where sometimes you wrap up late at night, and then you're sort of on a shift. You got to be up before 6 a.m. And so often you had that impending sense of doom. So you know what? It actually makes total sense now.
Mm-hmm. Well, caffeine will block those receptors. It will sit on there. And so what happens is when the caffeine wears off, it's got about a 6-hour half-life. You get an even worse kind of caffeine drop and everything feels worse. Another one I want to talk about is the biggest myth is caffeine does not give you energy. Okay, people think, I've got to have my morning coffee to give me energy and wake me up. No, it just blocks those adenosine receptors. Okay, it just sits in there so that sleepy potion can't get into the brain, but it doesn't give you energy.
That's really interesting. What an interesting thing. So it's just sort of you just forget. Almost your brain is just trying to forget about that part so that you can just get through this, but it's not really doing anything. It's
it's
like an
masking
illusion.
it.
Yeah.
100%.
Interesting. Well, I think speaking of sleep, this is definitely something that I was thinking as well when I was writing my question, but Graham kind of beat me to it, which is the rise of phones and screens. So the rise of phones means more people endlessly scroll before bed. What effect is that having? And is it good?
Oh my God. On so many levels, I call it a weapon of mass distraction. It is probably when you look at, the depression and anxiety epidemic that it's globally that we're facing, and in particular in the younger generation, I honestly believe it's a sleep deprivation epidemic. The reason being is we're in this attention economy where there are so many things that are vying for our attention, and all of the streamers and social media companies hire behavioural scientists like myself. We know how to hack into people's brains and get their attention and make sure that they stay hooked. They're like biochemical puppetry that we are unknowingly letting ourselves, having someone come into our minds and really like a mind virus make us stay connected to these things that are absolute kryptonite for sleep. So when you think about what is really happening inside the brain when you're on your phone, there's multiple processes here. But first of all, everyone has heard about blue light. Well, there's a bit of conjecture about whether or not it's just blue light and if blue light blocking glasses work. Some people say they do not at all, because there's also other ends of the light spectrum like green or purple that are probably doing the same things. And so what is we know for a fact, the main driver of ruining your sleep is having light into your eyeballs. So I always say, do not sleep with Alan. So Alan is artificial light at night. So Alan's really bad for you. Stay away from him. So basically, if you get light into your eyeballs, it pushes back melatonin, which is your natural sleep hormone, and you don't get this natural sleep pressure. Also, melatonin is a precursor to serotonin, which is the happy hormone. So if you muck around with that hormone, it's not a good thing. So if you've got light in your eyeballs, it's pushing that back. But also you've got to think about, what are you looking at online? So our brains have a really hard time differentiating whether something scary is happening or we're imagining it. And so if you're on your phone and you're watching this rage-baiting, provocative horror war, politics, someone getting eaten by a crocodile, all the things that you see on YouTube or whatever, your primitive brain is like, is that actually happening? Like, am I about to get eaten by a crocodile? And so your brain is a prediction modeling machine. It's always trying to work out what is important, what is expensive, what's going to protect me. And it thinks, I will just produce a few little stress hormones just in case that crocodile or bear is going to come into my cave. And so you'll be lying there and you'll produce adrenaline, cortisol. Now, it has a 30-minute at minimum half-life, so you will feel wired for at least 30 minutes, and it takes even up to an hour to get out of your system. So if you're lying there and you actually do want to go to sleep, you're like, go to sleep, and you literally can't because all the biochemistry in your brain saying, no, you can't. You're on heightened alert. And so we get this, then sleep anxiety kicks in because people are like, oh my God, like you, I've got to get up at 6 and it's 2 a.m. and you're like already tired. Tomorrow is going to be crap. So there's this combination. So yes, phones are the worst. And we know that we're all dopamine crackheads. I myself, I'm so addicted to my phone, and we cannot be allowed to moderate our own behavior. It's a very, very huge addiction, and children, by their nature of their growing brains, are even more susceptible to that dopamine addiction. They will feel it even more intensely. They'll be more addicted to it, and it'll be harder for them to cut that out. And you've seen kids will throw tantrums if they can't have their phones in their room. But if any parents are out there, if I can say anything to you, please, please, please make sure your kids do not have phones or laptops, iPads, or gaming instruments in their room, because the mind after midnight is a dark place. And I talk about this in my book. You have a high propensity to have suicidal ideation, depressive thoughts, anxiety, more likely to engage in self-harm. The data is unbelievable. So people are saying, that researchers are saying, if we just all went to bed 1 hour earlier, we will reduce global depression rates by a minimum of 23%. Just 1 hour bedtime change. So parents, I don't care how much your kids fight and kick and scream, just do that one thing.
Wow. Well, I mean, okay, there's so much to kind of jump off there because you've highlighted so many things, and I think I just wanted to piggyback off one other element because we had former head writer of The Office, US, Brent Forrester, on just talking about the other end of streaming and stuff, where you were talking about coming out from the psychological perspective. He was talking about it from what the pressure of the analytics is doing, which is sort of similar, where they're going like, you have a drop-off rate at this point, so we have to shorten this thing. So there's different elements where they're kind of synchronizing those two elements, the creative side and the psychology side, to kind of create this perfect blend of something that will never leave you uninterested, which is quite interesting in of itself. But the big question, sorry, before we get to these other questions, my big question is, after everything that you're saying, do you feel like every problem is kind of on Earth is kind of related to this? Because it kind of feels like I'm hearing anxiety, depression. I'm hearing like all these different, it has affects so many different mental health outcomes. It affects so many different impending senses of doom. And I just, as I'm hearing this, I'm thinking this connects to almost every problem I see in the world. Feels like a refraction of these elements just being amplified. So is bad sleep really like one of the big problems on Earth at the moment?
Yeah, well, I came to this conclusion through, being a stress researcher. And I'm like, why aren't people exercising? Why are they eating crap food? Why are they not being nice to each other? And like when I just, did the why, and I dug deeply into, and the data, like it always just came back to, if you're tired, you can't moderate your behavior. You do not feel like exercising. You crave salty, fatty, sugary foods. You become so much more reactive. You see negativity on faces where it doesn't exist. You have a short-term perspective. You are less generous. People trust you less. You trust others less. Physically, you're more likely to have heart heart attacks, cardiovascular disease, diabetes. You're more likely to put on weight because people who stay up late often snack, and the types of snacks that they eat are often not that good for you. So honestly, like that's why I called the book Sleep First, because if you fix that, all the other things become so much easier. You so much more bandwidth for, I don't know, even thinking about how you can make more money or how you can be more efficient or how you can choose the right partner or how you can be nicer to the partner that you have or how you can be a little bit more present or strategic when you're dealing with your kids and their problems. Like literally, life is so hard when you're tired. So yeah, I will evangelize sleep till from the tops of the mountains from now on. Even though I don't like sleep, I'm not a good was not a good sleeper, and I find it very boring and very annoying. So for everyone out there, I hear you. I was that person, but honestly, your life will change just with this one behavioral change.
Well, and so hold on, I'm gonna just ask one follow up because this is something that I asked my dentist actually when I went and saw my dentist, and I was like, when you have so much experience in dentistry, surely when you look at someone's mouth, you just have a rough idea of elements of their life that, they like you can probably like a dentist can probably tell if someone's a smoker straight away, or they can probably tell,
Yeah,
certain different
coffee.
elements, coffee, different elements because they know, what a mouth looks like that has a lot of that. So my thing is, you must be out in the world now. You know what the signs of bad sleep look like. So there must
Yeah.
be certain people that like you look at and you maybe don't even interact with them, but you can sort of almost sense like, okay, I'm sensing that bad sleep could just be a problem for this person just based on some of the things that you've just listed there. Like, because to me, I
Mm-hmm.
can now look at that and go, this is a diagnostic for myself. Am I craving fatty foods late at night? Then there's probably some sleep issue. Like I can start
Yeah.
using it to reverse engineer myself. But yeah, I don't know. Does that work for you? You ever use it as lens?
100%. So, like Mother Nature is like the mafia. It'll always come and take back what you've stolen from it. If you've stolen from tomorrow to pay for today, you will pay for it. And you will have all of these, I suppose, like second, third order consequences that you may not even realize that was sleep. It's like, I've got this analogy in the book. Like, imagine if you had a car and you just drove it like, zzz, and you were like revving it, driving over bumps and, you know, not turning it off at night, not plugging it in if you had an electric car. And then the car breaks down. You're like, this car is crap. It must be a shit brand or whatever. And then someone says, well, did you turn it off? No. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then you think it's everything else but you. And when you think about when you've compounding sleep deprivation over years and years and years and years, yeah, you probably will get cancer. You probably will get some metabolic disorder. You probably will go into early onset menopause because the mechanisms that you need to fix those things, to scavenge for cancer cells, to have a good immune system, to have proper hormonal profiles, testosterone, you're not giving your body the chance to make them or, fix them. And so you think, oh, it must be genetic, or it must be, I've just caught, cancer. No, you just didn't sleep to give your body the time to heal in the way it knows how to do it.
Wow. Okay. Well, that again, another great pitch for this book because it's really sounding like a bit of a like starting point for every single problem. If you're having a problem, like just maybe start here and then work backwards. What a
Yeah.
fascinating thing. I'm going to jump into some of the questions here just quickly. I might start with Allegra's question here because it's actually one that I'm thinking here, which is, how do you break a cycle of being tired but needing more coffee to get through the day, leading to bigger crashes? And then in brackets, at least for me.
Yeah. Well, so just for a start, know that coffee has at least a 6-hour half-life. And for some people are more sensitive, depending on genetics, depending on your health status, you may have an 8 or 9-hour half-life. So there's some people who are just really susceptible. And you will know if you're that person. So if you have 1 cup of coffee, you feel jittery. If you have liver disease, some people who are on the pill and pregnancy also makes you more susceptible to caffeine. So just know that 4 cups of coffee in 6 hours or even at 12 hours for some people before bed will push your sleep back an hour at least. And so some people say to me, oh, I sleep like a baby, even though I've had cups of coffee. And I'm like, oh, like a baby, like you're waking up crying through the night and restless and, wriggly. Yeah, coffee will do that. But people, what we know now from when we've got biometric capture devices or sleep trackers is that people may not realize, but their sleep is very disrupted. So you're getting these micro arousals all throughout the night. You just don't notice them, but your actual sleep quality is not that good. So coming back to the question, so you are absolutely exhausted. You're in this like terrible cycle where you're drinking coffee to get through the day. You're tired but wide by the time you get to the night. You're on the head goes on the pillow and your eyes turn into dinner plates. And you're like, what happened? And then you're like up and down and getting all anxious. And then you wake up in the morning to an alarm. You might miss the first alarm. The second alarm wakes you up and you're rushing and you're in a panic and your cortisol goes up and then you drink more coffee. So I've been that person. So first thing you should do is you've got to anchor your sleep wake times like your life depends on it. You've got to be utterly disciplined and you just you run a mini experiment. You go, I'm just going to do this for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And so that means that you have a pre-sleep routine where you turn the lights down, you have no overhead you don't hang out with Alan. You have your last food at least 3 hours before bed. Do not eat heavy meat before bed because your body will prioritize digesting that heavy meat over sleep. Give up the alcohol. Don't drink. It's so bad, but alcohol is terrible, terrible for sleep. So you'd have no sugary snacks before bed. People who have sugary snacks sleep on average 26 minutes less than people who don't eat sugary snacks. So really trying to not have anything in 2 to 3 hours before bed. If you must have something with tryptophan, which is the precursor to melatonin. So this is tart cherries, seeds, walnuts, cottage cheese, turkey meat, but don't have too much of it. You can have milk. So these things will make you sleepy. Then in the lead up to bed, you don't have anything that's excitatory. So no light in your eyeballs. Read a proper book. That's kind of like a rag of ether over your face. Books are good. Keep your phone out of your room. Make sure your room is cold, dark, and quiet. So your room should be around 18 degrees Celsius. It should be dark enough so if you hold your hand out in front of your face, you can't see your hand. So if your room is not that dark, wear eye masks. Make sure you have earplugs if you've got in a noisy place. Try to wear natural pajamas so you don't overheat. So cotton pajamas, and then protect that time like a maniac. And then make sure you anchor your wake time. So you have to get up at say 6 a.m. every morning, no matter how exhausted or how shit your sleep was. Do not nap during the day. And realize that when you get light in your eyeballs first thing in the morning, you count 16 hours ahead, and that is when you get your natural sleep pressure. So do not ignore that natural sleep pressure. If you start to feel it, you go with it. It's kind of like catching a bus. So your sleep pressure bus is like the express bus down to deep slow wave sleep. If you get on it, you'll get down there quickly, easily. You won't have any troubles. All the hormones are ready to go and boom, into that replenishing deep sleep. If you miss that bus, like you're sitting on the couch watching Netflix and the next thing rolls over because it knows how to keep you engaged and you're like, oh, I'll just stay up for one more hit like a junkie. What happens is your brain goes, why are you not going to sleep? Because for human brains, we always went to sleep at that time. And so you'll produce the stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, and you get your second wind. And then it makes it harder and longer for you to go to sleep. So what I'm saying is express bus to sleep. If you miss that bus, another bus will come along. But that bus will be dirty. It'll have many stops. It'll be smelly. There'll be heaps of people on it. And you may take you a long time if you even get down to deep slow wave sleep. And then you wake up, with a dirty brain feeling terrible. So the answer to this, anchor your sleep-wake times with ultimate discipline. And so you will get this natural sleep pressure. Then you'll get this natural ability to get into deep sleep. Have your last caffeine Okay, so you wake up. This is the formula. You wake up, you count 16 hours ahead, then you minus 6 hours. That is your last caffeine, whether it be chocolate, whether it be sports drinks, whether it be caffeine, whether it be tea. If you're a little more sensitive, make that 8 hours. So that's the formula. Do not have caffeine, in at least 6 to 8 hours before bed. So that's it. That's how you break that terrible cycle.
Wow. Well, that's exciting, and it also does make me question a sort of late night espresso after an Italian meal. It sounds like a disaster.
Yeah. And even tiramisu, I mean, it's full of caffeine as well. Yeah.
Well, I was look. We're gonna have to have you back because we've got so many other questions. But I did want to pick up on something that you mentioned before that did kind of sort of ring an interesting bell, and I was kind of fascinated for you to sort of follow up, which was you mentioned 8 sleep. But I don't know what that
Yes.
is. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what that was? Because you seemed very excited by it.
Oh my God. Like, I love this piece of technology. It is an absolute game changer. So I was given it because I'm a sleep researcher. But honestly, if I had to pay for it, I'd give up my shoe addiction for this thing. It is a mattress cover that differentially cools your part of the bed and your partner's part of the bed according to your own body type. So if anyone's out there who has fights over the doona with their partner, like they run hot or you run cold, and maybe you've had a sleep divorce, get one of these. So it's basically this mattress topper that has vesicles of water that runs through, and it cools or heats according to your body temperature and your stage of your sleep cycle. So what happens when you go to bed, it learns you, and it's AI enabled. And when you get into bed, you're all snuggly and warm. And like if you're in a cold environment or if it's a hot day, your bed's cool. And then it will slowly bring your temperature down because you need to drop your core body temperature to get into deep slow sleep. And then it'll micro adjust throughout the night. So if you get hot or cold, or if you've been drinking, you get overheated, it'll cool you. So it's a hangover cure. Or if you've had too much food, if you had the meat sweats because you've had too much, heavy dinner, it will cool you. And then it records your heart rate variability, your respiration, your resting heart rate, your micro arousals, your sleep stages, if you snore. And there is also an expensive version that's an actual bed. So if you snore or have sleep apnea, it just raises your head very slightly to stop you snoring. And where it keeps your partner's side of the bed flat and a different temperature. You can now also get blankets and pillows that are all, hooked up. And so you live in this hermetically sealed, amazing little bubble. But honestly, this has been the most incredible sleep piece of tech I've ever had. It really works. And I've heard from a lot of women too, if they're having perimenopause or menopause, they're having hot flushes, it completely eradicates those. And there's like a hot flush mode on the bed. It is expensive though. I think there might be cheaper versions, but like if you do have, mental health issues, you do have heart conditions, you do have diabetes, you have menopause, you have like significant physical issues, I honestly believe it'd be worth getting it because you'll pay for it in the end with less medication and, you being more efficient and just being a healthier person.
Wow. Well, does it give you stats or does it give you some
Yeah.
analytics as well? I was going to say, because
Yeah.
you must love that, like, because you can really analyze your own sleep to a really deep level. So you can, wow,
Yeah.
that must be exciting.
A funny story was I heard this couple. So the husband actually got into his wife's, because if you've got a couple, you can see each other's apps data. He got into his wife's side and then turned the temperature right down on her. So she got cold during the night. So she came over and gave him a cuddle. So he was like, oh, you were cold last night. She was like, I don't know what happened to my 8 sleep. And he was like, gotcha.
Well, that's good. That's good. Bringing people together and providing great sleep. So that's amazing.
Yeah. I kick my partner. I'm like, get off, you're ruining my data. Get your leg over your side.
Every single bit of information is crucial. It's all important going into a good sleep. No, I was just going to say, I've got some final thoughts here and I'll grab some final thoughts from you. But I mean, Usually our final thought section is sort of full of a lot of sort of higher level stuff in the sense of like, I need to focus more on my energy or I need to do this. But you have given us that, but you've also given us extremely practical things of 7.5 hours of actual sleep, 5 to 6 90-minute sleep cycles. There's just different actual genuine bits and pieces. I mean, people can take their own notes from this, but there's actual really practical things in there. But then, it's just explained so many things in my life. Why shift work was so hard and why I had that
Mm-hmm.
specific feeling every shift job I've had.
Yeah.
And how many different elements of the world all feed back into this. And I definitely agree. It seems like if we did give
Mm-hmm.
everybody 1 extra hour of sleep, so many things would be better. Even at a small level, people would be slightly nicer to each other and what have you.
Probably
So
have
there's just
less war.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's just some of the notes. I've taken 2 pages, but did you have any final notes or important things that you thought people should maybe pick up on or that we didn't cover today?
I really think that, you know, you can't biohack yourself out of, poor sleep any more than you can biohack your way out of needing oxygen. Like it is essential if you want to be happy, healthy, have a long life, be engaged with your kids, be efficient at work. Like there's just no other better performance enhancing protocol you can use. So yeah, be very aware of, I suppose there's so many people selling lots of gypsy tears and snake oil, like you buy this supplement, do this and do that. Like really just start with the basic principles. And I just want to add melatonin, for instance. Never buy that stuff off the internet. If you need it, get it from your doctor, because the quality of the melatonin on the websites is really, really, I suppose, dodgy. There's some that have none in it and others have like 400 times. And please don't give your kids gummy bears, like those melatonin gummies. Melatonin is a really important hormone. It does lots of things in your body and you're messing with systems we don't even know. Another thing, if you do take sleeping tablets on a regular basis, be very careful. Have some washout periods. There's a lot of research that's coming out that it's highly correlated with dementia. And that, because what happens when you have sleeping tablets is you get sedated. You don't actually have those proper sleep cycles and the brain cleaning. And so if you do know people who are taking them, be really careful. Look, ask your doctor. There's some sort of newer evolution of sleeping tablets that are not as bad, but they're early onset dementia in people who are like under 65 is one of the fastest growing health problems in the world. It's really, really serious that there's so many things that we're doing in our lives, not getting that deep soil sleep, that we're seeing epidemic proportions of young people getting dementia. So if that doesn't scare you, I don't know what will.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one. I think, again, you've given us some great points again, right in these final thoughts, again, very practical things that we can all sort of think about and reflect on and work on for ourselves. I was going to say, Dr. Gemma, people would have listened to this and gone, you know what, I've got to reach out. I've got to A, get the book, and then I've B, got to reach out and find you. So where's the best place to do those things?
So I'm most active on LinkedIn actually, because I work a lot with people in organisations. So I post all about my research and really interesting articles. So Dr. Jemma King, PhD. So the book is out on Amazon and Booktopia, and there's an Audible coming out as well on the 29th of July. So that can all be pre-ordered. Just Google Sleep First, Dr. Jemma King. And yeah, I've got a website, Jemma King. But yeah, mostly if you want to look at what I'm doing, it's LinkedIn. And yeah, happy to befriend anyone who reaches out, because I think this stuff's super important.
Mm. Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like, honestly, probably the most important thing that everybody can start working on for themselves. I was going to say, we're going to have you back because there's so much more. We didn't even get to all the questions, but then I have so many questions coming off this about other things that you must be seeing in the world that are stresses just have nothing to do with sleep.
AI, yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that we can probably talk about that I think would be great to have you back on for. But Dr. Gemma King, thank you so much for today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
No worries. And thank you to all our listeners and viewers, and thank you to the team for writing in. We're over 20,000 subscribers. We're over 300 episodes. So everybody that's sharing, thank you so much. And as always, everybody, have a magical week.